So the original project came to me, my producing partners brought it to me and said, we want to do a project based on this short. So watch the short. It literally made me laugh out loud. It was one of the funniest things I had ever seen. And so we talked about what it could be as a feature because I didn't exactly know how they planned on expanding it. And once they took me through what their plan was, I said, look, if you can pull that off, this would be a great project. Well, in working with Tracy and Dewayne on this screenplay, what was great about it is they already gave it to me kind of in its in a form that I could make the movie immediately. It's always great when you read a script and you go, I see the movie, we can get going, and it doesn't take a whole lot of quote-unquote rewriting. And that's what was great about this whole process. They always knew exactly what they were writing. They knew what the movie should be. And I kind of walked into this kind of idea of me just being a protector of their vision and make sure I could get what it is they wanted it to be on screen with no apologies. Once this story came to me and it allowed me to kind of step one leg into the horror and the other leg could still be in what I feel comfortable in, I just had to go for it. But I think a lot of the quote unquote emotions that these characters go through are very realistic and very accessible to an audience. And I think when you find a piece of product that makes you kind of see stories that you've had in your head before that you want to tell, I think you have to kind of go for it. And that's kind of what I found myself in. Horror as well as comedy, I think, is best experienced with an audience, a lot of people together, because we're kind of going through this communal experience. Well, this film had a depth to it that I thought was extremely important to bring to light. Basically, what the film is saying throughout is that Black people specifically are not a monolith. It's sometimes, we can be categorized in kind of one specific character, or whatever the case may be. This one, as the log lines say, there's a lot of us in this, and we're all different, and at the same time being the same. We said, how do we make this movie our own? And I think in their choices for choosing Juneteenth, how much more Black can you be in terms of unless this movie took place over the entire Black History Month, but it's one of the most important days that we own as a culture, and we wanted to own it in this film. The game was something that, in terms of design, there was a description of what it should be. As I started to get into what the actual board game would be, that's when it became really exciting for me from a visual standpoint, figuring out, as we looked at all the games, whether it was Life or Monopoly or, we took inspiration from that. Even there's a clock in the middle of it, and I guess by now most would have seen the trailer. Once again, trying to make it as offensive as possible, leaning into that, making sure our characters kind of would have, I should say the audience has just as much of a reaction as our characters do. Horror and comedy are those two genres that are best experienced with people. And I think to combine those two, I think the only place to see this is in the theater, because there's a permission that is given to the comedy side of it as well as the horror side of it. And I think the audiences, as you hear somebody else laugh, it makes you laugh more. And as you hear somebody else scare, sometimes the jump of somebody sitting next to you is the thing that makes you jump. So I just think that this movie is kind of designed perfect for theaters. And I'm really looking forward to the audiences checking it out. This film is made to be experienced outwardly. It's a laugh out loud. It's a scream out loud. And I hope that the audiences just take away just a break from all the craziness we're dealing with in the world. And I must admit, that's exactly what I want them to take away from it, some fun.
I play Lisa on The Blackening, and I feel like The Blackening has a way of bringing up pertinent issues with the use of comedy, which it's interesting. There are going to be people who have moments where they see we're laughing, but then you realize in life there are people of color that are dealing with extremely dangerous situations, whether they're interactions with the police or they're dealing with any threat to their lives, sometimes we have to laugh at it so that you don't cry about it, essentially. So I just love that we poke fun at a lot of things, but we also bring up some really important issues. Well, to be perfectly honest, I am not a horror girl. I do not watch horror movies. I'm terrified. And I think that's the only way I do my job well, because I'm actually terrified. So when this script came across my desk, I fell in love with it because there was story. And I felt like the relationships were so beautiful. And I really wanted to explore that. I loved this concept from before it became a film. I was actually a fan of like the viral video that was all over the internet. I was like, wow, these are instances that we see in horror movies all the time where the Black character gets killed. And we aren't the main character of our stories most of the time. We're constantly made the best friend and never the main focus. And so to see a movie like this that has so many different people of color, like we're all Black leads. It's insane. I've never seen that before. Some of us make it, some of us don't. You'll have to watch to find out. But it's nice to see us taking control of the narrative and being a part of a genre that we're so left out of most of the time. This ensemble, I feel like, is lightning in a bottle. Like, you guys casted so many amazing people that are so great at what they do, and our personalities match. Like, we mesh so well. It's so nice to just come to work and want to be around everybody who's here. But also people who are really passionate about what they're doing, and they understand that it isn't just a horror movie, but the comedy in it is used strategically to have conversations and bring about conversations that we need to start having. So what drew me to Lisa was the fact that I love portraying Black women, powerful Black women who are intelligent and articulate and who show a different side that aren't stereotypical in any form or fashion. They're just themselves and free in spaces that they just so happen to be in. They command a presence, they take up space, and they show people that we're multidimensional people. We're not monolithic. I hope the audience takes away several things from the movie. Number one, that the horror genre is not exclusively a Caucasian space. Number two, that people of color, specifically Black people, are the main characters in their own stories as well. They don't need to be the sidekicks of anyone. All of these characters are fully fleshed out, multidimensional human beings, and they're depicted as such in this film. That's a beautiful thing to see. It was nice to be able to laugh at certain things, know that they're true, know that they could also be hurtful, but also find the humor in them, or the humor in healing from them. It's been a really great experience, I have to say. I'm obsessed with this cast, meeting everyone in this cast and not necessarily having pre-existing relationships with any of them, but still finding myself wanting to constantly talk to them. We have a group chat. We're always like sending memes back and forth, like teasing each other, kind of in like a funny brother-sister kind of vibe. But like when it's time to get down to work, we're there supporting each other. If something happens, we have each other's back.
If you know the sketch, it's, you've got a group of Black men and women in their, late 20s and 30s who go away or in a cabin, and they're haunted by a cabin killer, and he says, "I'm going to kill the blackest of you." And then they go around and figure out, they trade barbs about who's the blackest. What we started to find when we started looking at the sketch and how it would be a movie, we started thinking, as in Black culture, or in other cultures, when you watch these horror movies, if you've ever been to a theater, you hear people yelling back at the screen, "Don't go in there, don't do that." And, we, as being a part, being Black myself, we always talk about, well, we would never do that, right? We would never do some of the things that you see in a horror movie. So we've kind of blown that out a little bit and found the comedic portion of that. At the same time, we want this film to be frightening and scary. But the comedy is ever present. The relationship between the characters is unique, and the look at culture is unique. I think that the opportunities for comedy exist in horror, but we just have taken it to the next level. The script, the characters, the improvisation, and our director's understanding of comedy is vital to this movie. Oh man, we're so fortunate, you know. This is the kind of cast that I could have only wished we could have gotten. I think that you know, it's a list of, you know, up and coming, smart, talented, funny, gifted people of color who sometimes aren't seen, and having gotten a vehicle where they can all kind of flex their muscles. They're, you know, I was familiar with every single one of them before we got started, and they each bring their own strengths to the table, and they play really well off each other. And I think the other thing that's really beautiful about this cast is they like each other. You know, they don't have to be convinced to spend time with each other. Well, thematically, we, you know, one of the things that's unearthed is, you know, who's the blackest, or what does it mean to be black? And you really, there's no such thing, truthfully. I mean, there's a culture that we all sort of understand and get as black people, but some people are raised slightly different, and they come from different backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds. Doesn't make you any less black. I think having a sense of your identity and where you sit in the world and your place in the world is vital to any culture or heritage. But I think that this movie kind of starts to deconstruct that a little bit, and we have a little bit of fun with it. Well, Tim's great. Tim is, you know, he's just a good person, first and foremost. And he's very calm and zen. He doesn't, his ego doesn't get in the way of a good decision. He's got an ego, and he should. He's an accomplished director, and but he's confident. He's sure of himself. He takes in information really well, and he listens to thoughts, but he's got a point of view, which is what you want every director to have.
I was sent a link to it because a friend of mine thought it would be right down my alley, just humor-wise. So I watched it, and I just fell in love with the voice of it. I was like, this is funny, but also smart and fresh and original, and I hadn't seen anything like it. So I immediately was like, oh my God, I want to know this person, whoever did it, and then also figure out a way to adapt it, because I saw, it was just one scene, but I saw the potential of a feature in it. And so I kind of did some research, got an email address, emailed my phone number, and said, hey, I know this sounds weird, but I saw your Comedy Central short and I want to make it into a movie. Can you please call me? And then the next day, I think, I was on the phone with Dewayne. And Dewayne was like, oh my God, I love Girls Trip. I know who you are. I've been following your work for a long time. Are you serious? And I was like, I'm absolutely serious. I would love to make this into a movie. So that was kind of like the origin of it. The cast really elevated the material. And yeah, they took what was on the page and just brought it to life in such a fun, magical way. And it's also because they loved each other. And they didn't even all really know each other, but by like day 2 of being on set, it felt like they were a real like group of friends. The Blackening is kind of a defining movie. And the reason I say that is because I couldn't find the right comparison when we were trying to figure out the tone. We were looking at Scream because I'm a huge Scream fan, as is Dewayne. And we were like, it's not quite it. But, you know, obviously it's really meta and really pop culture and fun. So we like that aspect of it. And then with Scary Movie was hilarious, but maybe the scares weren't there. And we wanted to kind of have something that felt very suspenseful and very true to the horror genre, but also it could survive as a comedy. A few things that we're kind of saying in the movie. One thing is that while there are things that are distinctly Black or distinctly like stereotypically Black, there are things that are not, and that doesn't necessarily mean you're less Black than somebody else. So ultimately, we do land in the space of Blackness is whatever you want it to be, but we kind of get there through a lot of humor and, you know, a lot of pointing fingers and a lot of drama. But ultimately, what we're hoping people come away with, if you want to come away with a message, is that there is no one way to be Black. It means anything to anybody. The game was something that we came up with because we knew we needed a device. We needed something to justify. So Dewayne loves Black trivia, and I like Black trivia, but not like he loves it. And basically we were like, what if we use Black trivia as a way to measure their Blackness, and if they can't answer the question correctly, they die? And that made us laugh, that Black trivia would have that type of stake to it. Tim is amazing, honestly. I'd always been like a fan of his work, but it never worked with him. And so my first introduction to him was a producer and then as a director. And I have to say, once he attached to direct and I got to work with him directly in a writer-director capacity, that's when my mind was blown, because I think where he and I have a synergy is we're both like unapologetically commercial minds. We don't think in terms of small audiences. We think in terms of like, how do you get a whole theater to respond? How do you get people to laugh? How do you get a big group to go out? So we're always trying to find like the biggest joke or the biggest scare, the biggest like moment that'll play to a wide like audience. He added so much humor in the way that he blocked it and choreographed every scene. And I think the way that he interacts with actors is kind of a masterclass of comedy too, because he would never, because that cast is so funny, they would riff off the script constantly. And some people are very much like, you have to like execute the script like perfectly. And what Tim did so well was that he would let them have fun. And every now and then, like something brilliant would come out that was like unscripted because Tim let them play. I didn't realize this at the time, but The Blackening is another friendship movie or project. And I was like, somebody pointed out to me, they're like, you really love friendship, like ensemble things. And I'm like, oh, I do. It's maybe, so now it's like the third or fourth thing that I've done where it's a group of friends, college friends in particular, that get together. But I also have been dying to do a horror for a really long time. And the thing about horror movies, they're actually very similar to comedies. I think that like people don't necessarily see the overlap, but it's so clear to me. With The Blackening, weirdly, it felt like writing girl strips to me. It felt like, once again, I'm using an ensemble group of people and we're coming up with big jokes and big set pieces and scares every, few minutes. So it wasn't that big of a departure, but I got to finally kind of fulfill my horror dreams. I really wanted to do it. We just made a movie for everybody. We didn't make a movie for Black people. It'll make Black people happy, and it'll make us laugh, and it'll feel very specific and niche to us. And there'll be jokes that Black people get that maybe the masses don't, but it's not so niche that you can't just go and enjoy it. It's a total crowd pleaser for everybody. And I saw it with my own eyes, so I'm really excited, and I hope that, people go out and see it.
I think it's very comedic, you know what I mean, in a way that I really can't compare to other horror films that aren't parodies. It's genuine comedy in it. So hopefully that sets it apart. It's been a great experience. It's been very, very collaborative. Tim is a very collaborative director. He's open to any suggestions or punch-ups, so if you have any questions about your characters, he's there to really just explain it all to you and let you understand why you're doing what you're doing and not just because it's scripted. And as an actor, I really appreciate directors like that. And Dewayne's the same way, and to have him on set all the time with, you know, pretty much all of my scenes and being able to ask him questions about the script is really, really helpful because, I mean, he wrote a lot of it, so he understands it in a way that, you know, neither I or Tim understands it. So it's great to have them there as resources. No, Dewayne is so lenient with the script. It's just like, I wrote the script, it's there, now I'm here to act, and I'm gonna let you do your thing too, which is admirable. Because I feel like as a writer, I'll be trying to like project my idea of the character on the actors around me and just want to be in control, but he's not like that at all. Like if I'm there to ask him a question, he has, you know, he tells me his opinion of the character and what he was going for, which is very helpful. But if I don't ask a question, he's just there, you know, to play his character and be as generous as an actor as he could be. The cast is amazing. The way the cast came together and just rounded out is beautiful. I had no idea it would, you know, be what it's become. Like we're all in a group chat, we talk every day, we joke. We joke off set, we joke on set, we joke doing takes. Sometimes we're too loud, they tell us to, you know, keep it down so the guys can shut up the shots. But we just have a chemistry that hopefully it reads on camera, I'm sure it will. And we're just so, we all understand our characters and we're all so different. So when we improv, it's not like we're butting heads chasing for a joke. We just all cohesively come together to make these scenes. My idea of King is, as we all do when we're young, we project the image of who we want to be to protect us in a way. And his character going to college, when a lot of people go to college, you can become anybody you want to. But his choice of character was just this thug, this hardened guy, where ultimately is not all that he is because he is in college, so he has aspirations to be more than this thug type character, but it's who he chose to be in college, and now it's still who they think he is because, I mean, what else do they have to go off of? But he's become more. Just kind of given the nature of the film and the script and, you know, attempting to show that being Black isn't a monolith, that it's not all the same. We have these different ideas of Black people. We have Allison, who's biracial. We have Dewayne, who's a gay Black man. We have Sinqua, who's looked at as this, I guess, a sex symbol, a desirable Black man. I'm the thug character. We're all archetypes. And I guess another archetype that with Black men is Black men prefer white women, especially when they garner success. And, you know, it would have been a missed opportunity not to have it. And I guess they just threw that oop the king.
I don't think it's just a horror film. It's a horror comedy. And I think that is what really sets The Blackening apart, because I think it takes what people love about horror and what you love about comedy and use it in such a complimentary way that it says, it feels like a new genre that's not one of either, but like the baby of both. And then I think from the point of view that it's in and really speaking on like Blackness, I think that so much horror for Blackness lives in trauma. And I feel like a lot of comedy is the subversion of that trauma. So being able to put them both and show the horror through a comedic lens, I think really speaks to the Black experience. Hopefully they take away that it was a good, entertaining, funny movie. They take away a bunch of laughs. I want them to see that the way in which these characters present themselves, that Blackness is not a monolith. I think that was the biggest thing of being like, oh, these characters, they love each other, they're friends, and that their survival comes from their existence and how that kind of feeds into like what existing as a Black person feels like. And I hope that is what the biggest takeaway is like, oh, this is very funny, also poignant.
Yeah, that's nice.
So first of all, Tracy, I think, is such a great writer and mentor. She really helped me figure out just the business. As I said, she was just like, hey, you want to make a movie? And I was like, I have skill and talent. How does this work? And so she was there to really guide me through like this process. And I like love her so much for that. And then Tim Story is legit the most collaborative director I've ever worked with. And having this be my first movie, I understand that like there are things that I don't know, but he trusted me in a way that I didn't expect. which he was like, you've proven yourself based off what you've written. I trust you. And to have Tim's story give me that kind of energy, I am still like blown away by it. I love him so much. He's so nice. Because of the sketch, like the idea that like my improv group did that, and I was like, oh, it sucks, like they can't be in the movie. So I like initially was like kind of sad, and then truly I mean this very seriously, I am obsessed with every one of them. It is so strange how the chemistry is so solid, and we talk about it often and be like, we're always just like waiting for the shoe to fall, because we're like, this is lightning in a bottle. Like, how are we all vibing so hard? And I love them so much. And I think they really, because I had my friends from the sketch in mind, seeing them take these roles and create something new really allowed me to free myself from like any confines or anything that any preconceived notions of what it could be. It allowed us to just kind of create it together. And I think that has made the best chemistry, because we're like, we're in this together, we're figuring it out, yay. We love each other. Dewayne represents basically me, because I am Dewayne, but I think like he's a writer who is struggling because the systems that he are a part of are basically telling him that who he is and what he knows isn't good enough. And I think that as like a Black gay man existing in this country, I think a lot of my life have been navigating systems and being like, okay, this is not necessarily made for me. How do I thrive in this setting? And using that line of being like, oh, Black people don't like horror. Like, I've had people generalize things to me about Blackness who are not Black. And I'm just like, how do we exist in this world where there are such large generalizations about a certain group of people? And I think that's the whole movie, is breaking those down, of showing you so many different facets and sides of Blackness that it's proving you cannot make this one thing, because it's not, and it never has been. And if you think that way, you're wrong. Yeah, I think so much of horror lives on like human experience. And because a lot of horror has been predominantly white, I think something that I really wanted to tap into was the natural ability of Black people and their survival instincts, and how that would play differently in a horror movie. Because if you led a life where you have always had to fight, where you have always had to survive, being put in a horror setting would be different. Because you're like, I'm not making that dumb choice, because that's stupid. Why would I go into that dark ass basement? I don't want to. So having these people kind of face the reality of horror movies in like a very real way is what I think is so funny. Like, this movie is for the people that watch horror movies to be like, don't do that. And we're the people doing it in the movie, be like, don't do that. I'm not doing that. Like, and I think that is so much of like the soul of this movie, is being able to speak for the people who watch horror movies and don't see themselves in those horror movies, or don't see themselves in the actions of horror movies. Because so much of it is like a formula. I'd be like, oh, you have to be a little dumb in horror movies or you'll survive. And leaning into that, I'd be like, no, all these people are just like smart. Like, sure, like there are stakes, and like these stakes are very real, but like what experiences that they have had in their lives, those can help. And kind of connecting those, I think, is what makes the movie like super fun, and I'm obsessed with that aspect of it. Yeah, I love the word petty. I like the idea of being petty. I think there's so much comedy in that, because you're actively knowing, like, I am doing this purposefully to have a reaction. And I think my character so lives in that spot. And I think something that I live very truthful by is like not denying reality. And Dewayne's pettiness comes from like, there has been experiences that we've all lived. Nnamdi has cheated on Lisa multiple times, and we just go and forget, like we gonna act like it didn't happen. And so being able to live in that truth, but showing that like he is emotionally hurt, like that petty is just truth with like negative feelings on it. And I think that plays, and then once those feelings are like dealt with, you just have that truth, which is like, oh no, we do have to deal with like the relationship dynamic between Lisa and Nnamdi, and we do. But I think like that journey of going from like petty to just like truthful is the emotional journey of letting go some of that negativity about the truth and then just getting to a place where of transparency and they have a solid relationship again.
We all black. I think that's what I love the most about it when I was reading the script, because I actually have gotten quite a few horror scripts in the past, and I'm kind of like, I don't know, I kind of feel like, and I'm not a big, huge horror buff. I have a few favorites, but what I really loved about the script was that I think this is the first time that we're actually seeing, and I mean, we all know in horror films, normally the trend is, you know, if there's a black person in there, they probably might be one of the first ones to die. So that's a running joke that we have in the black community that we notice. But what I love the most is just seeing that everyone is black, everyone has to survive. So when you are faced with that kind of dynamic and dilemma, what happens? What do you do? And so I think this will be one of the first times that we actually see what happens. What we see a lot in films is especially when you see groups of black people, you see friendship dynamics. And I think what's so interesting about this is that you see the kind of friendship and the depths of the friendship through conflict. So you're not introduced to how close we are and how well we get along for a very long period of time. And so I feel like that is kind of the definition of true friendship as well, is how do you weather difficult times together? So you get to see how close we all are by how we are able to deal with conflict in difficult times, not the opposite way around. I actually don't think that she's torn in her biracial identity. I think she's very aware that she is biracial, that her dad is white, that her mom is black. She loves them both very dearly. But I think that there is a pride that she has in her blackness, and it has informed the way that her life's trajectory, it's informed that direction because she's now doing Black studies. She's very proud of her Blackness with the Rosa Parks of it all and understanding her history. And I really believe that when you understand where you come from, it really informs who you are in that part of that identity. So you can embrace that and celebrate that and not leaving any parts of you behind. The humor in this lies in the truth of the matter for these circumstances for the characters in the film. And so I think the more honestly, and this has been our goal, the more honestly that we respond to these circumstances, this is where the humor lies, especially for the Black community. And so I think that there are going to be a lot of people who watch this, that they understand it. That's what they would have said. That might have been what they would have done. And I know we've all had the experience where we're sitting down, we're watching, we're like, don't go in there, girl. What you doing? Oh my God. You know, and so all of that is actually on the page. And so we do that. We get on each other about, stupid decisions made or anything like that. And so I think you're going to really watch this and really enjoy the way in which we kind of band together and respond to things similarly. So I won't tell you whether or not splitting up was a good idea or a bad idea for this film. I'll keep that a secret. But what I will say is that if I was in her position in that moment, I probably would not have suggested to split up. That is like my number one thing. Like whatever happens, and there's been a time or two where we've been in the house and my husband, like we hear a noise. My husband's like, I'm gonna check it out. I'm like, I'm gonna check it out with you. You ain't gonna leave me in here? Like, absolutely not. Like I'm behind him. He's like, go back to the room. I'm like, absolutely not. Like if we gonna die, we die together. And I feel like that's how we are in the Black community. Like, if we doing it as a group, because, and listen, I don't want to survive that bad. I don't want to be the one to live and be like, so-and-so died, and I don't want them memories, okay? I want to be with you. We both gonna live, or we both gonna die. And that's how it is. So I probably would have not suggested to split up, but I think that Allison is a very smart cookie, and I think it'll be interesting to see how her decision affects the group and whether or not it was a good one.
My character is really ambitious. It's Shawn. He's really he's into the horror thing, and he's into the horror thing. He's over enthusiastic about it, and he just doesn't know what he's getting himself into. I don't think, as none of the people in this movie do. What drew me, it's a fun. I like the mix of horror and comedy in it, and that's the biggest thing. You know what I mean? You could be scared as hell, but as long as you have fun, it's always a good movie. You feel me? And those movies aren't ubiquitous. You know what I mean? Like we don't have a lot of those anymore, where it's just like it's fun and scary. I'm a comedian at that, and I like to be scared. I love scary movies. The cast as well too. The cast is just crazy. You got Sinqua Walls in here. You got Jermaine in here. You got Melvin Gregg, also another 757 guy that's in here. It's just a melding of talent together. And I'm telling you, it's contemporary. It's contemporary horror. It's not like a retro piece. And like that hasn't been done before. So you'll get updated jokes, bro. Like we're spitting out jokes of today, you feel me? So it just feels fresh and new. Well, listen, I worked with Tim Story before. Shout out to Ride Along and White Famous. So I know how he works. I know he works quick. I know he's precise, and I know he knows what he wants. What sets this role apart from the other roles that I've done is, I guess super ambition. I guess the difference in the characters would be I'm not trying to figure anything out here. Like I know that I want to play this game. I know that I want to have fun, and I'm trying to get my girl to kind of be there with me. You know what I mean? So I think that's the difference in it, you know? I don't know if there's any innocence in this character either. He didn't seem that innocent, you know what I mean? Like a lot of the times, a lot of my characters are real innocent, so you can see it in the eyes, but this one, I feel like he's just on it, you know what I'm saying? What I want people to walk away from this movie with is like their guts hurting from laughter, and then their hearts soar from the beating that it takes with the horror in it. I want them to be scared, and I want them to laugh. Like, and the mashup of that with a fresh new take and it not being done before, I think people are just gonna have a good time. I want people to just have a good time walking away from this movie, man.
So I was given the script, I read the script, and I dug it. And I saw Dewayne Perkins wrote it, and I remember hearing about the sketch being amazing. And that got me interested damn near immediately. So when I saw the cast that was attached, X and Sinqua, and Melvin, Dewayne, Grace, Antoinette, I was like, yeah, I would love to work with these folks. They seem like such a cool group of people to, share a screen with. So I'm glad I said yes, because it turned out to be one of my favorite experiences filming a movie. I've always been interested in playing a character like Clifton. He's someone I've just been curious to kind of portray. And giving that opportunity to play this sort of person is, it's exciting to me. And I think everyone sort of feels that way about their characters individually. We talk about just what we want out of not just our careers, but our lives. And I feel like that fuels a lot of what is so unique to us about this particular project. We are so comfortable with each other. The chemistry is so great that we feel like the improv, it just came naturally. It just happens. It just happened organically. We have a group text. That helped a lot. The group text helped a lot with the chemistry, and everyone's so damn down to earth, so that helped too. But when you have good chemistry, you can rely on improv at that point. And I think when you have such a strong foundation in the script, you can go anywhere, just as long as Tim brings us back home to what the scene's sort of point is, or what the message we have to get out with each piece of dialogue. Like, there's a domino effect with every line. You can't say this without affecting that, and Tim knows that. So he's a great leader when it comes to honing us back. Like, I'll have ideas, and they'll be my ideas. They're Jermaine ideas, and Tim will look at it, wait, and I see his gears turning and going, all right, when you say that, it affects that. Let's try it, but then we have to address that later, when we get there. He's a great director. This movie speaks to us in different ways. Individually, I think we all have a reason for doing the movie, from the characters to the message. And I can tell you what mine was. I've always felt like this movie just kind of each character sort of represents a different spectrum of blackness. You know, you have the biracial girl, you got an immigrant, you got a gay man, and you got a guy in Clifton who was always been told he wasn't black enough or was a nerd. And I think this movie brings up a really good question in, like, you know, what is blackness? Who's to say what is black and what is not? And when I read the script, I really heard the message, man. And it's just like so well done. He didn't surprise me because I know a lot of people like Clifton. I grew up around a lot of people like Clifton. I hear Clifton when he speaks, and that was my job, is to make the character endearing enough that you hear him, that you're listening to what he's saying, and even in the mannerisms. For me, I wanted to do the less is more approach. In fact, I told Tim I don't even want a lot of lines in the movie. I kind of wanted to be in the background, and the guys in Outcast, and Outcasts they have this neurosis about them that is, you don't really, like, they don't really notice Clifton's there until he interjects something. And they're like, oh, you're here? And that's what I wanted to embody.
I mean, what sets the Blackening apart from other horror movies, I think, is to me specifically, it's the authenticity and the political commentary. You know, we really like the fact that there's so much truth in the story that we're telling. There's things that are authentic from conversation and dialogue. To me, more than anything, it's the writing, the satire of it all, the emphasis of it all as truth. I tell a lot of my friends that this is a movie where you sat in the theater and heard people yell at the screen what they would do to stay alive. And in this movie, everything that people say they would do, we do to try to figure out how we can survive. So it's real. And I think that's what makes it special. I think that's what makes it unique. I think the best reaction that we can get, and the reaction that I want, is for people to want to watch it again. I want them to watch it and say, I missed something, let me watch it again, or I loved it, let me watch it again, or build that very good space of a word of mouth. I think, you know, when things first come out, you want it to have all the heat and all the energy, but you don't want them to dissipate or die down later. You want people to keep coming back, and you want them to keep talking about it. So for me, what I want is for it to be a movie that has a tip pole. You know, I think those are the ones that I always think about. Those are the stories I always remember, and I want people to still talk about it later and say, you know what, let's go watch it again. Let's get it on DVD. Let's download it. Let's watch 30 minutes of it at the gym. Let's just keep it going. To me, it's life. You know, I think that the good thing about it, and I think the writing team did such a great job, is shout out to Dewayne Perkins, who was our writer and also is starring in the film as well. And I told him this genuinely as a person who was a fan of his writing. I think all of it coming together, that perfect gumbo of the satire, of the horror, of the comedy, it's real. I think, you know, life is not one thing. Humans are not monolithic. And I think that's the thing that we see in the film, is that even though, you know, it takes on all these forms and it has all these themes, even in serious situations, people laugh. Even in dire circumstances, people find comedy. So I think it's all real. And then the idea of what's going on in our culture today and how it's all put apart upon the backdrop of horror, I think is really special too. In the movie The Blackening, I play the character of Nnamdi. And what really drew me to the story, to the film, and to the character was a commodity of things, honestly. It was an opportunity to work with a filmmaker in Tim Story that I grew up loving. And not that Tim is that old, he's just someone that, as a young black man growing up, and you see people accomplishing things on a great stage, you know those names. And so to have the collection of producers and director in Tim that's telling this story was a gift to me, because it's an opportunity to learn and go to film school at the same time and be an actor. I was a fan of everybody that I was able to become aware of from being my castmates. You know, I think when you're a student of the game, you research everybody and you watch their work, and everybody is so talented. And so it was an opportunity to do that. It was an opportunity to play in another genre, which is always attractive. And I think also for Nnamdi as a character, he's going through such a life transition that I think is something that is fun to show on screen. I think, you know, you see him kind of allude to the fact that he's gone through a transition in his life from where he was as a young man to where he is as a man and where he wants to go as a man. And for me, I'm always attracted to those stories of growth and natural arc and how someone is kind of reconciling their circumstances or reconciling their mental or their trauma or whatever it is. So even though it's in this world, there's still a character to be lived. And that's what really attracted me to playing the character and being in the movie. You know what I love about it is because I think the thing about this is an environment that everyone is really well trained at improv. And a lot of my castmates have such a great improv background in terms of Dewayne, in terms of ex-Mayo, in terms of Jermaine. So it's an opportunity just to live on your feet. And I think the best comedy comes when things are just free and they're reactive and they're not premeditated. And so in many cases in the dramas that I've done, it's always been a space where you follow the structure and you follow the dialogue that leads you from point A to Z or whatever that is. And this one you can kind of go off, you can go off path. You know, Tim gave such freedom to say, okay, just play. And so you have to be present and you have to listen. And you know, for me, acting is a love and a passion. So when you get to just sit in it and just be in it consistently and find your funny, find those moments where you can throw a little joke in there, or throw a little ad lib in there that keeps the ball up high. It was fun. All the information about Nnamdi and the informant of Nnamdi was really based off of being around his friends and the spontaneity of being in each scene, because I was able to ingest what everyone's idea of the relationships were to create this backstory. And many times for us, because we're all brought into this ensemble, we didn't have months to rehearse. We had to come in and find distinctive things that we needed to define our relationships and define the characters. So as I was able to, in the first couple of days, sit back and hear how people communicated their thoughts about Nnamdi or the way they responded in dialogue to Nnamdi, it gave me more fuel to say, okay, this is who he is. Okay, I'm gonna add a little bit of this. Okay, I know what these relationships are. All right, I know what he wants in this story. Okay, I know why he's here. And then, you know, Tim and I have had such great conversations about what he's trying to accomplish, what is his goal, which is every character's mission is to find that goal. And I think for Nnamdi, the biggest thing that I understood was his mental. And so his mental. So when I saw everyone else's perception, I was like, well, how does that affect him? When people are saying he's still that same guy. Are you still that same guy? We know, and he wants to break out of that box. So then it creates an even bigger cavalier moment for him, because he wants to not only prove he's not the same man, but also that he's different at the same time.
What sets the Blackening apart from other horror movies is that it's good. Yeah. I think what sets it apart, seriously, is that you have a group of, I think there's like 6 of us, 6 like main cast, but I think 8 in total. And we are best friends. And I think you really get to see our friendship. You get to see our love, our rage, our pain. You get to see Black people being scared and being nervous and not having all the answers, which oftentimes in many movies, not just in horror, the Black person has all the answers. We're like the fucking dictionary. We're like, who has the answers? The Black girl. And it's like, Shanika does not. My character, Shanika, she does not have the answers all the time, which is very frustrating for her. I will say that. We're going to scare you. I think we're really, I think that sets us apart. I've seen, but like when I saw other movies and it was set up as a horror comedy, like there were some things that felt like kind of hacky to me, but you will not feel that with this. Like you will be scared as shit and then you will laugh hard as fuck. What drew me to this role is that Dewayne Perkins wrote it, and he is a very good friend of mine. And I was like dying to do something with my friend, but then when I read it, so that initially what drew me to it, like, fuck, my friend's making a movie. But then when I read the breakdown and all of the characters, and I was just like, I have to play Shanika. Then I auditioned for every role that was in the movie. But I mean, when you break it all down, like, I had to play Shanika. Like, Shanika is me. I am her. So that's what really made me be excited. And then I've never been able to do a production at this caliber with all Black people. And then the fact that it was directed by Tim Story, I mean, my God, he's not only an LA legend, and I'm from LA, born and raised, but he's also like a film and TV. Like, I just was dying to work with him. So yeah, definitely the content of it. And I've never done a horror, never thought I would be, because I was like, I'm not that girl like in, Scream was like I'm not, I don't play with demons, right? But this is very funny, and it's also like a bunch of friends, and like I love our chemistry on and off camera. It's just, it's been amazing. So I'm happy that what drew me to it initially was Dewayne, the fact that my friend wrote it, but then when I started peeling back all the pieces of what it was about, I was like, oh, I have to do this movie. I like Shanika was very much to herself, regardless of who was around. She's gonna be her. She's gonna do her, period. And I love the fact that she says what everyone else is thinking. She could have a little more of a filter. I think I have more of a filter than Shanika. But Shanika, she also is just kind of like, she's going to like berate you for not knowing what the fuck to do, but then she's going to help you. So she just has to let you know why you're fucking up, and then she gonna help you and get you together, make sure you're safe. She loves really, really hard. She does get scared, but she has great problem-solving tactics. So see, she's solution-oriented. She's like, this is going on, so we need to do this. And this is happening, so let's do this. So that's what really drew me to her when I read the entire script. I was like, okay, and I like her a lot. And she's a comic relief. She's very, very funny. For real, Tim is like one of the nicest people. He's amazing. And you'll see there is a scene where I have to be in the water, and I was in the lake at 5 a.m. on my period. Yes, Jesus. And it was cold, but I wanted to take the opportunity to do that. But also, like, I had a director that I felt so safe with, and a director that I knew believed in me so much that it made me want to commit even more to this role and do certain stunts and have them be full out and be so authentic that when the audience sees this, they're not removed, because it's like, is that really her? Is that the stunt? Like, what's going on? He made me want to work harder and go a step further every time it was time for me to show up and prove for my character, because of how hard he worked and how much he was so collaborative and so supportive. I have never in my life experienced a director like this. I've been in the industry since I was 12.
True to form, in every scary movie, there's got to be the black folk who get killed early. And it's a movie that's filled with lots of black folk. So it's like, well, who gonna get killed early? It's a scary satire movie, if you will, about this group of friends who have known each other from college, and they are having their reunion, their Juneteenth party in a cabin in the woods. And y'all know black folk don't go hiking. Well, I can't say that, because black folks do go hiking. They do go camping, but they chose the very scary location that they are at, very isolated. And unbeknownst to them, there is a killer who has a different turn of events for them while they are here trying to celebrate. And the premise is whoever the blackest person is gets to survive. And let's just say it's a scary movie, so a whole bunch of folks gonna get killed. So who's black enough anyway? Who is black enough? You know, I think what sets the Blackening apart from other horror pictures is that it's part comedy, it's part humor, it's also part, informational, if you will. And I think a lot of times messages go down a little easier when there's a little comedy, but also who doesn't like a little gory, scary situation? And it's something you don't also get to see a lot of black people in, especially throughout the whole movie. You see, black people front and center as like the leads of this. So it's a little some action there too. You get to punch some bad guys. This is fun. Hopefully, audiences will take away that, scary movies or, the scary movie genre is not just limited to a certain type of person or a certain type of actors. And, we can expand that to be more inclusive even. Tim is great. This is actually my first time working with him as a director, but I've known him for a little bit. And so it was great to get to play with him. And I love when he comes after a take and he does this thing with his hands. He's so excited. I'm like, oh, that was a good take. And he lets actors act. And as a comic, it's good to have direction, but also good to be, get a little free rein to play a little bit. It's funny how this whole thing came about, because we were actually looking for a director for a project that I'm working on, and I was resent the Blackening sketch that was on Comedy Central because the director that I was working on did that. And so I was like, oh my God, yo, he did this. I remember watching this. I love this. It was hysterical. And I remember cracking up years ago when I saw that. And then in the same week, a friend of mine hit me up and said that he had booked the Blackening. And I was like, wait, based off the sketch? I literally just watched it 2 days ago. And then, I hit up my agents like, this is a movie now? And then I got an offer a couple days later. So it was actually kind of kismet how it all happened. Well, I think even in dramatic spaces, you still have to like cut through some drama with some humor. In the intensity of it all, like there's the humor that cuts through. And even in a horror film, Jay and I, were able to just play off of each other and have jokes and fun because it is funny to see Black people, because we're not going to put ourselves in this position to get killed. This is not what we do on a normal circumstance. And so the concept of it already is hysterical, but now obviously, there's still some dramatic elements. So with what I do, I try to infuse as much humor even in the dramatic moments. And so I hope that plays through. Jay is always on. He is always trying to make everybody laugh. And so, and I, thankfully with Insecure, I've had 6 years of practice on how to kind of be the straight woman for a little bit. So I allow, whenever there's like a comic with a big personality, I allow them to kind of just take front and center. And then, I have my moments like, oh, you done? You good? All right, I got next, And so it's that double Dutch moment of like, all right, cool. Me, all right, you. Me, and so I play my position.
Well, I think the film is daring in a lot of ways, and I love movies that are kind of a bit of a mashup that, break genre, classic genre. So this is a horror movie with a tremendous amount of comedy, but underneath it is this kind of real satire. And that satire is powerful, and it spoke to me as like there was a voice behind the movie, and that voice was the writer and creator of the movie originally, and then it was going to be carried through by Tim Story, our director. And so knowing that Dewayne and Tracy had created this incredible script, and knowing that the movie did something to me when I read it, and what it did to me is I couldn't forget it. And what I couldn't forget about it is it would make me laugh, which would make me disarmed, and then it hit me with an idea that was a powerful idea or a real scary moment. So I call it a roller coaster ride. And the minute I read it, I said, I want to do this movie. And I was thrilled by the opportunity to get to work with the incredible Tim Story, who's a, incredible director and a great human being. Well, it's funny. My partner, Jeanette Volturno, ran Blumhouse for 12 years. So she and Jessica Melanathy and Rick Osako, they've all been involved in horror. I produced a movie called Cabin in the Woods. I worked with Joss Whedon and Drew, and we created this kind of really fun stand-up movie that spoke a little into the genre. And this takes it one step further. This takes an all African-American cast and puts them in the center of a horror movie and deals with all the horror tropes of a horror movie, but also gets into social satire in a way that's really powerful. And I think we get the tone right, and I'm pretty sure we will. I think the audience will love this roller coaster ride that we're creating, and it'll leave them thinking a little bit too. So it's got everything. First of all, Tracy Oliver is an incredible talent as a writer, and Dewayne Perkins, who plays Dewayne in the movie, is also an incredible talent, an improvisational kind of actor, but also a writer. And the two of them collaborating on this hit this kind of powerhouse script that then working with Tim Story has been watching him work with this cast, watching him get a performance from this cast, watching him get improvisational work from this cast, watching his elegance in doing that, in presenting his vision or discovering what the cast can bring to his vision or the vision of the script, has been a real kind of like a meaningful experience for me. So I think as a producer, working with someone like Brian Dobbins is, an incredible opportunity. Brian is a talent manager, and he comes from, talent relations part of the business. And it's been really fun to work with somebody who has such a firm handle on the material, the story, the tone, but also on how to approach it with the talent. We have a big ensemble cast, and so I'm thrilled by the collaboration of all the people involved. Working with this cast has been really incredible. I remember the first couple of days they got together, they'd come out on set, and there would be 7 young, beautiful actors in the scene, and they would be explosive And literally you would be wearing the headphones and they pop off your head for a second because these people were having a great time. And it was so amazing to watch them click in with each other. And we saw it happen in that first few days of filming in which they began to play off each other in a way that really exceeded the expectation I had, but also my conception in reading what those characters were and who they were. And then the improvisational nature and the kindness that they were able to give to each other. I think Dewayne Perkins, starring in a movie he wrote based on a skit that he created and a short that he made of that skit, that's a dream come true. He was so generous with the other actors, and they were generous with him. Tim was so, I mean, I use the word generous maybe too much, but Tim is an incredibly generous director with his cast, and he created an environment where everybody felt safe. And because of that, I think the tone in the characters and the experimentation and also the way they develop those characters is really exciting, and I think it comes off the screen. And also, they become great friends, this cast. Well, first of all, Jay Pharoah is, I got a chance to work with him a few years ago, so getting to see him do this, and you know, it's, like I said, it's a horror picture with comedy, so it's got some serious moments. And Jay delivered on the performance, and he was paired with the lovely Yvonne Orji, who has also got strong roots in comedy, but brings a powerful performance to the movie. And it's unexpected, guys. I think they subvert any expectation, and the movie does a lot of that. So you see them, and they're outside of what they would normally play, but with all of that humor, and then the movie takes a left-hand turn really hard. You go, whoa, and it's scary. It's really. I think this is a great experience, and I think the audience is going to love this movie for the unexpected nature. And that's what we love about horror. We don't know when it's coming. It's suspense. And this movie has tremendous suspense, but it also has big laughs. And the cast delivers.